Scorpion Chapter 1, Emotional Depth. The first irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. Have you ever sat across from someone who didn't say much, but still made you feel completely seen? Someone whose silence wasn't empty, but full of intensity, unspoken truths, and raw emotion? That's not just intuition. That's not just being emotional. That's Scorpio. And their first magnetic gift is something the world barely understands, but can never forget. Backhand index pointing right, emotional depth. Diamond with it, Scorpio, the emotional ocean with no shore. Scorpio doesn't dabble in emotions, they dive in head first. To love them, to be loved by them, is to step into a space where feelings are not passing clouds, but storms. And not the kind you see from afar, the kind you live inside of. While others try to move on, Scorpio asks, but what did you really feel? What's still hiding under your smile? What didn't you say and why? They want to touch the soul, not the surface. And that's terrifying for most people. New Moon, Pluto, and Mars, the planetary alchemy behind emotional depth. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, god of the underworld, and Mars, god of war. That combination is cosmic fire meeting sacred shadow. Pluto gives Scorpio an emotional X-ray vision. They see what others hide. Mars gives them the drive to confront it, not run from it. This is why Scorpio can sense someone's heartbreak even if they say, I'm fine. They feel lies in their bones. And they often feel the emotions of others more clearly than their own. It's a blessing, and it's a curse. But above all, it's real. Open book my story, the Scorpio who changed how I feel forever. I once knew a Scorpio who never raised his voice. He wasn't loud, wasn't flashy. He barely used social media. But in the quietest conversations, he asked me things no one else had the courage to ask. One night, after watching a film about grief, I said something like, yeah, it was sad. He looked at me for a long moment and said, why do you always turn away when something real touches you? That question hit me like lightning. Because he was right. He didn't ask to argue. He asked to reach me. That night, we didn't talk much more. But I went home, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry without shame. That's the power of a Scorpio's emotional depth. They don't just help you feel, they help you heal. Fire the dark side of deep feeling, Scorpio's inner battle. This gift isn't painless. In fact, it's often a source of great suffering. They overthink, not because they want to, but because they feel too much. They hold on to pain because they believe every emotion has a purpose, even the ugly ones. They struggle to find people who can handle their intensity, so they hide it. Layer by layer, smile by smile. And worst of all, when someone betrays a Scorpio emotionally, it cuts deeper than most people will ever know. They'll forgive, maybe, but they'll never forget the moment you lied to their soul. We love Dharma, Buddhist parallel, dukkha, and the noble truth of feeling. In Buddhist teachings, the first noble truth is that life is suffering, dukkha. Scorpio knows this, not as theory, but as experience. They don't try to escape suffering. They walk through it over and over again because they know that facing pain is the path to wisdom. Just as the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree and faced his own fears, Scorpio sits inside their emotional cave and confronts their own demons. This is not weakness. This is emotional enlightenment. Speech balloon what I learned through the eyes of Scorpio. Before I met Scorpio energy, I thought strength meant control, composure, emotional balance. But now I know. Strength is crying without shame. Strength is listening to pain without fixing it. Strength is letting love hurt you and still loving anyway. Scorpio taught me that emotional depth isn't dangerous. It's sacred. It's the part of us that still remembers we are alive. Final word, the magnetism of emotional honesty. In a world obsessed with instant gratification and shallow connection, Scorpio shows us the power of emotional honesty. Their depth is intimidating, yes, but it's also magnetic, healing, unforgettable. If you're lucky enough to be trusted by a Scorpio, understand this. You are not being loved. You are being chosen. And that means something that even words can't fully explain. Crystal Ball next chapter teaser. In chapter 2, we explore what happens when that emotional depth becomes fuel. Fire passionate intensity, the kind that creates lovers, leaders, and legends. Scorpion chapter 2, passionate intensity. The second irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. They don't fall in love. They fall into fire. Have you ever been loved so intensely that it felt like you were the only person in the world? Not a sweet, calm love, but a burning one. A love that consumed your doubts and ignited something primal in you? That's not fantasy. That's Scorpio. Their passionate intensity is not just romantic. It's how they live, how they breathe, how they move through this world, with purpose, with fire, and with everything they've got. Fire passion isn't just a feeling, it's their nature. For Scorpio, life isn't something to experience half-heartedly. They're not built for casual. They don't just want to connect, they want to merge. This passion shows up in every part of their life. In relationships, they give everything. In goals, they don't stop until they own the result. In beliefs, they are either all in or completely out. They are ruled by two powerful planets. Mars, the planet of war, desire, and intensity. Pluto, the planet of transformation, death, and rebirth. This combination makes Scorpio both warrior and alchemist, driven by emotion, refined by pain. Brain the difference between passion and obsession. Let's be honest, passionate people can scare others. Why? Because they shine a light on how little most people actually care. They expose how often we settle, how often we say, "It's fine," when it's really not. Scorpio doesn't live like that. When healthy, their passion becomes deep devotion, limitless creative drive, boldness that awakens others. But when unbalanced, it can become obsession, possessiveness, emotional exhaustion. The key? Scorpio must learn not to lose themselves in the intensity. And we, in turn, must learn how to honor their depth without fearing it. Open book real-life story. A Scorpio who turned art into fire. I once collaborated with a Scorpio visual artist on a spiritual retreat project. While others discussed branding and slogans, she didn't say much. But later, when it was time to present visuals, she unveiled a single painting. One canvas. No explanation. It showed a phoenix rising from a black ocean, made entirely of hand-carved ash and gold leaf. We all went silent. When someone asked what it meant, she simply said, "Pain deserves to be beautiful, too." That's Scorpio. Their intensity isn't drama, it's transformation. They take what others fear and make it holy. Crystal ball spiritual connection, Scorpio and the fire of purpose. In Buddhism, there's the concept of right effort, the energy we bring to our practice to live with awareness and intention. Scorpio, by nature, lives with this kind of sacred fire. They do not drift through life. They pursue meaning with everything inside them. Their desire is not just romantic, it's existential. They want connection that shakes the soul. They want purpose that burns away everything false. And when they channel this into art, work, or spiritual growth, they become forces of transformation, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. Speech balloon personal reflection. What Scorpio taught me about passion. Before I truly understood Scorpio, I used to think of passion as dangerous, messy, too intense. But a Scorpio once told me, if it doesn't make your chest tighten or your breath stop, it's not real. That stayed with me. Now, I use that same passionate intensity when I meditate, when I love, when I create. Scorpio showed me that passion is not chaos, it's clarity. Glowing star. Why this trait makes Scorpios unforgettable. You can't forget someone who burned with you. You can't forget someone who looked at you like your soul was made of stardust and shadow, and loved both. Scorpio's passion leaves a mark. Sometimes it's a scar, sometimes it's a blessing, but it's always real. And that's rare and irresistible. Crystal ball. Next chapter teaser. In chapter 3, we'll explore how Scorpio draws attention without saying a word. Sparkle's magnetic presence. Because some energies are too powerful to hide. Scorpion chapter 3, magnetic presence. The third irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. They don't need to speak to be felt. Their silence is louder than a crowd. Direct hit opening hook grabs attention immediately. Have you ever locked eyes with someone who said nothing, yet it felt like they just read your entire soul? No pickup line, no performance, just stillness. Stillness with power. That's the magnetic presence of a Scorpio. And once you've felt it, you can't forget it. Milky Way. The unseen gravity of Scorpio energy. Scorpios don't need the spotlight to shine. They don't compete for attention. They simply exist, and you notice them anyway. Why? Because they embody something most people have never mastered. Silent confidence, emotional stillness, authentic power. Their presence feels like an unsolved mystery. Not dangerous, but charged. Like there's a storm inside them that they've learned to tame. And that tension? It's hypnotic. Where does this presence come from? Scorpios have often gone through profound emotional experiences, many at a young age. Betrayal, abandonment, secrets, emotional trauma. They've walked through fire, and they rarely speak about it. But that history lives in their eyes, in their posture, in the way they enter a room without needing validation. People can feel that they're not easily fooled, not easily shaken, and definitely not here to impress anyone. That unshakable stillness is rare, and people instinctively respect it. Open book, true story. The Scorpio I met once and never forgot. I was at a small gathering, and someone walked in late. He didn't say hello to everyone. He didn't apologize for being late. He just walked to the corner of the room, leaned back, and quietly observed. No jokes, no loud gestures. But people noticed him. I did too. Later, I asked him what he thought about the discussion we were having. He looked at me calmly and said, "I don't think loudly. I feel precisely." That sentence, that energy, that presence still lives with me today. He didn't demand the room. The room gravitated to him. Crystal ball, spiritual depth, inner stillness as a form of power. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a quality known as equanimity, a deep, inner peace that isn't shaken by pleasure or pain. Scorpios seem to carry this naturally, not because they were born calm, but because they've already survived emotional chaos. They've trained themselves to hold space without needing to dominate it, to listen without needing to react, to observe without seeking control. That inner restraint becomes their outer power. Speech balloon. What I've learned: you don't have to prove power. Before I encountered Scorpio presence, I believed confidence meant speaking first, leading loud, making bold impressions. Now I understand. Real power doesn't announce itself. Presence isn't about volume, it's about authenticity. Being fully grounded in yourself is more magnetic than anything you can perform. Scorpio showed me that when you know who you are, the world leans in to listen. Glowing star. Why this presence is irresistible. Scorpios carry an energy that whispers, "There's more to me than what I'm showing." And that mystery, that restraint, is addictive. They aren't trying to impress you. They're simply being themselves, with full awareness, full control, and full truth. That's why people fall for them. That's why they're unforgettable. Because while the world is screaming for attention, Scorpio simply is. Crystal ball. Next chapter teaser. Coming up next in chapter 4. Shield, fierce loyalty. When a Scorpio chooses you, they protect you like a sacred oath. Scorpion chapter 4. Fierce loyalty. The fourth irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. When a Scorpio stands by you, it's not a gesture. It's a sacred vow. Have you ever had someone defend you behind your back without ever telling you? Someone who didn't need to announce their loyalty, but proved it again and again in silence? If you've experienced that, chances are they were a Scorpio. This is the fourth reason why Scorpios are so magnetic. They love like warriors. They protect like guardians. They stay even when the world walks away. Shield. The nature of Scorpio's loyalty. For Scorpio, loyalty is not just a personality trait. It's a soul contract. They do not attach easily. It can take months, even years, for a Scorpio to let someone fully in. But once that bond is made, it's almost impossible to break. Loyalty, for Scorpio, is not about being polite. It's about belonging. It's about fierce emotional territory. And once you enter that space, they will fight for you, defend you, heal you, and even destroy for you. That sounds extreme, because it is. But that's what makes it real. Compass. Why is their loyalty so intense? Scorpios are deeply intuitive. They feel energies long before words are spoken. So when they choose someone, it's not casual. It's because something in them recognizes something sacred in you. They will stand beside you when no one else will. Keep your secrets like they are their own. Fight for you even when you're not in the room. But make no mistake, this loyalty has conditions. If you lie, they will withdraw. If you betray them, they will never forget. If you take their loyalty for granted, they will burn the bridge and never look back. Open book, real story. The Scorpio who protected me without words. Years ago, I was in a tough workplace situation. Rumors, politics, gossip. My reputation was quietly being dragged through the mud. I thought no one saw it. Until one day, a colleague pulled me aside. A Scorpio woman. She didn't offer comfort. She didn't say much. She just said, "I've already spoken to those who were spreading it. They won't do it again." I was shocked. I asked her why she got involved. She looked me in the eye and said, "Because I watched how you treat people when no one's looking. That's enough for me." She never asked for thanks. She just disappeared back into her day. But I never forgot that moment, because that is Scorpio loyalty. Quiet, fierce, unshakable. Crystal ball spiritual meaning, loyalty as sacred guardianship. In Buddhist teachings, there's the concept of Sangha, the spiritual community. Not just anyone, but those who walk the path with you, protect your awakening, and help keep your heart aligned. Scorpio is the protector of the Sangha. They don't care about titles or appearances. They care about truth. And when they sense sincerity in you, they become your quiet shield. Their loyalty is a form of dharma, a commitment not just to you as a person, but to who you are becoming. Speech balloon personal reflection. Scorpio taught me to be loyal to myself. Before Scorpio energy entered my life, I thought loyalty meant staying quiet or agreeing with people to avoid conflict. But a Scorpio once told me, loyalty isn't silence. It's protecting someone's truth, even when it's inconvenient. That changed me. Now, I choose my people more carefully. I speak up when it matters. And I protect the energy of those I love, not just their image. Scorpio taught me that loyalty isn't soft. It's sacred. Glowing star. Why this trait makes Scorpios unforgettable. In a world full of fake smiles and polite betrayal, Scorpio is real. They may not say, "I'm here for you" 1,000 times, but when the storm hits, they'll already be standing beside you, sword in hand. Their loyalty doesn't fade when things get hard. That's when it gets louder. And when someone stands by you like that, you never forget them. Crystal ball. Next chapter teaser. In chapter 5, we explore the calm, quiet power Scorpio carries deep within. Gemstone. Unshakable confidence. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. Scorpion. Chapter 5, unshakable confidence. The fifth irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. They don't need to prove they're powerful, because they already know it. You can feel it before they say a word. A Scorpio walks into a room and doesn't try to stand out. But somehow, everyone notices them anyway. It's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's unshakable confidence. The kind that doesn't ask for attention because it doesn't need it. Gemstone. What makes Scorpio's confidence different? This isn't loud, performative confidence. It's quiet, internal, and immovable. While others seek validation, Scorpio finds power in self-awareness. They know who they are. They know what they've survived. They don't need you to agree with them. They've already chosen themselves. That's what makes it magnetic. You can fake confidence with charm, money, or looks. But true confidence, the kind Scorpio carries, comes from depth, pain, and evolution. New moon. The root of their inner power. Many Scorpios have experienced emotional destruction and lived to rebuild themselves. They've been abandoned and came back stronger, betrayed and still learned to trust again, knocked down and rose not once, but many times. This is not blind confidence. It's earned. When you faced your darkest self and survived, the world's judgment doesn't scare you anymore. That's the Scorpio secret. I've already met the worst version of me, and I made peace with it. Open book. Real story. A Scorpio who stood tall in silence. I once watched a Scorpio man get wrongly accused in a team meeting. The room fell quiet, waiting for him to defend himself. But he didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just said, "You can believe what you want. I know the truth." Then he walked out, calm, composed, completely unmoved. Later, the facts came out. He had been right all along. But he never gloated. He just kept moving forward, as if the noise had never touched him. That's the difference between performance and presence. Scorpio doesn't perform. They own their power, even in silence. Man in lotus position. Spiritual depth, confidence without attachment. In Buddhism, one of the key insights is the principle of non-attachment, letting go of the need to control, to impress, to be seen a certain way. Scorpio embodies this in their most powerful state. Their confidence is not, "I must win." It's, "Whether I win or lose, I am still me." This is not indifference. It's liberation from insecurity. When you are no longer chained to the world's approval, you begin to radiate something that's rare and irresistible: self-certainty. Scorpio's confidence is spiritual in nature because it arises from inner truth, not outer applause. Speech balloon, personal reflection, learning to stand without noise. I used to think confidence meant speaking first, being the loudest in the room, or winning every argument. But a Scorpio friend once told me, real strength is quiet. You only need to speak when it matters. Since then, I've practiced walking into spaces without performing. I've learned to say less and feel more. I've stopped defending myself to people who never truly listened. And I feel more powerful now than I ever did trying to prove myself. Glowing star, why this trait makes Scorpios unforgettable. You remember a Scorpio not because they told you they were powerful, but because they made you feel your own power just by standing in theirs. Their confidence invites reflection. It challenges you to know yourself better. It awakens something inside you that says, I don't have to pretend anymore. In a world full of people trying to be something, Scorpio reminds you how magnetic it is to just be. Crystal Ball, next chapter teaser. In chapter 6, we go deeper into what makes Scorpio so intriguing. Waning crescent moon, mysterious nature, the irresistible allure of what they never reveal. Scorpion, chapter 6, mysterious nature. The sixth irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. The less they reveal, the more you want to know. Have you ever been drawn to someone and you didn't know why? Not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't say. Their presence stirred questions. Their silence created tension. It wasn't cold. It wasn't empty. It was magnetic. That's Scorpio's mysterious nature, trait number 6. And it may be their most seductive gift of all. Candle mystery isn't a game, it's a language. Scorpios aren't mysterious to manipulate. They don't play hard to get. They are hard to get because they've learned that not everyone deserves access to their inner world. Their mystery isn't a mask. It's a shield, one they've built through heartbreak, betrayal, and soul-deep disappointments. They know what it costs to reveal too much, too soon. So they keep their energy guarded, not to hide, but to protect the sacred. Milky Way, why Scorpios hold so much back. For most people, mystery is uncomfortable. We want answers. We want clarity. We want to know. But Scorpio understands that. What's truly powerful is often hidden. Depth doesn't rush. Silence can reveal more than words. They're not interested in being understood by everyone. Only by those who are willing to go slow, to listen, to stay present through stillness. They hide parts of themselves not because they're dishonest, but because they believe in the value of the unseen. Open book, real story. A conversation that changed me. I once sat next to a Scorpio man during a silent meditation retreat. For 3 days, we didn't speak a word, but I felt his presence like gravity, solid, still, unmoving. When the retreat ended, I finally asked him, "What were you thinking about during those long hours of silence?" He looked at me gently and said, "You asked that like silence isn't full of answers." He walked away, and I never saw him again. But to this day, I still think about that line. Because mystery doesn't always mean confusion. Sometimes, it's an invitation to look deeper. Crystal Ball, the spiritual side of mystery, embracing the unknown. In Buddhism, there's a powerful truth. Not knowing is the most intimate. This speaks to Scorpio's soul. They are intimate with the unknown, comfortable in the void, curious about the shadows. They don't fear what they can't control. They study it. They live beside it. Their mysterious nature reminds us that not everything needs to be explained, that some truths are meant to be felt, not understood. In a society addicted to instant answers, Scorpio is a walking meditation in what cannot be rushed. Speech balloon, personal reflection. Mystery taught me to listen. I used to fill every silence with noise, every pause with explanation. But a Scorpio friend once told me, "If you want to know me, stop trying to read me. Just be with me." That broke something open inside me. Now, I sit with silence longer. I don't force clarity. And in doing so, I hear more, feel more, connect deeper with myself and with others. Scorpio's mystery isn't about being unknowable. It's about inviting presence before expectation. Glowing star, why this trait is so magnetic. People are drawn to what they can't easily grasp. Scorpio lives in that realm effortlessly. Their mystery whispers, "There's more to me than I've shown you, but you have to earn it." And in a world where people overshare everything, Scorpio holds something back, and that's exactly what makes them unforgettable. Crystal Ball, next chapter teaser. In chapter 7, we explore Scorpio's most powerful force of all, fire transformational energy, how they rise from pain stronger than before. Scorpion Chapter 7, Transformational Energy. The seventh irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. When others break, they rebuild. When others give up, they evolve. Scorpio doesn't just survive, they transform. Have you ever met someone who seemed to disappear and then came back as an entirely different person? Someone who took heartbreak, loss, betrayal, and didn't just recover. They became more powerful? That's not resilience. That's not luck. That's Scorpio's transformational energy, and it's the reason they can burn, fall, and rise again with even more fire in their eyes. Fire, the Scorpio essence, death, rebirth, and rising again. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth. But this death isn't physical, it's internal, energetic, emotional. Scorpio is the sign of cycles, endings that lead to beginnings, pain that leads to purpose. They don't transform once. They transform over and over again, through heartbreaks, failures, losses, betrayals, even spiritual death. They don't just bounce back. They shed skins. They bury old identities. They rebuild from ashes, and when they rise, they are never the same. Scorpion, the phoenix symbol, more than a metaphor. Scorpio is associated with three forms. 1 Scorpion, self-protective, reactive. 2 Eagle, elevated, observing. 3 Phoenix, immortal, reborn through fire. But the Phoenix stage is what makes them truly magnetic. A Scorpio in Phoenix form walks with depth, speaks with power, and carries an aura that whispers, "I've died before." This doesn't scare me. It's this quiet knowing that makes people instinctively respect and even revere them, because they've already done what most fear. They've let go of who they were to become who they are meant to be. Open book real experience. The Scorpio who lost it all and came back unstoppable. I once had a Scorpio friend who went through what most would call emotional ruin. Her long-term partner left suddenly. Her business failed. She became estranged from her family. For months, she went silent, vanished. Then, one day, she resurfaced, different. There was no bitterness, no pity, just clarity. She had cut her hair, moved cities, started a new business, and looked more alive than I'd ever seen her. When I asked how she did it, she said, "You don't survive things like that by holding on. You survive by letting everything that's not real die." That line never left me. We love Dharma's spiritual parallel, transformation in Buddhism. In Buddhism, transformation is not accidental. It is a core principle. Before awakening, the Buddha had to confront hunger, temptation, ego, illusion. Only through letting go of attachment and illusion did he reach enlightenment. Scorpio walks a similar inner path. They don't just endure darkness, they seek the truth inside it. Their transformations are not surface level, they're soul deep. And through their own spiritual deaths, they teach others how to let go, evolve, and awaken. Speech balloon personal lesson. What Scorpio taught me about growth. I used to resist change. I feared endings. Even when something was clearly no longer serving me, I clung to it, mistaking familiarity for safety, until I watched how a Scorpio I loved handled loss. She didn't fight it. She surrendered to it. She let it break her, and then she built something sacred from the ruins. She once told me, "Your breakdown is your birth. Don't interrupt it." That was the moment I realized. Growth doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like destruction before it becomes freedom. Glowing star, why this trait is so irresistibly magnetic. Scorpios don't chase attention, they become it. Because people are drawn to power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that has walked through fire and still stands with grace. They don't just inspire you, they challenge you to ask, what am I afraid to let go of? What would happen if I allowed myself to die and be reborn? Scorpio energy is a mirror. It reflects the parts of you that need to be released so something greater can rise. And that is beyond magnetic. It's transformational. Crystal Ball next chapter teaser. In Chapter 8, we step into the mind of Scorpio and explore how they never move without purpose. Chess pawn strategic intelligence, the silent mastery behind their every decision. Scorpion Chapter 8, Strategic Intelligence. The eighth irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. Scorpios never move without purpose. What seems quiet is always calculated. Have you ever met someone who says very little, but somehow always seems 5 steps ahead? They don't make noise. They make moves. That's Scorpio's strategic intelligence, one of their most quietly magnetic qualities. You may not always see them coming, but by the time you do, they've already shifted the entire game. Brainwise strategy is written into their soul. Scorpios don't trust easily, and because they've often experienced betrayal, loss, or manipulation early in life, they've learned one thing quickly. Emotion without strategy is self-destruction. So while their heart runs deep, their mind runs deeper. They study, they observe, they don't ask loud questions, they listen for what's not being said. Their decisions are rarely spontaneous. Every step is layered, intentional, and often invisible until it's too late to stop. Snake calm on the outside, calculating underneath. What makes Scorpio's intelligence so magnetic is not just the what, it's the how. They anticipate motives. They plan exits before entering rooms. They weigh every word before it leaves their lips. They are like chess masters playing in silence. While others react, Scorpio responds. While others chase recognition, Scorpio chases results. Open book real story. The Scorpio who never reacted until it mattered. I once worked with a Scorpio strategist in a creative agency. He rarely spoke during team meetings. People assumed he was disengaged. But in one critical campaign, when things began to fall apart, he quietly stepped in, presented an alternative plan he had mapped out weeks ago, and saved the project. When asked why he didn't speak up sooner, he said, "Timing is the difference between being heard and being ignored." That's Scorpio strategy. They don't fight for attention. They wait. And when they act, they shift everything. Crystal ball, spiritual intelligence, strategy with soul. In Buddhist practice, right view and right intention are part of the Eightfold Path. These are about seeing clearly and acting wisely, not impulsively. Scorpio embodies this spiritual intelligence. Their strategies aren't born from ego or dominance. They are born from survival, wisdom, a deep desire to protect their peace, their people, and their path. Their silence is not avoidance. It's calculation. It's alignment. They move when the energy says, now. Speech balloon, personal reflection. What I learned from Scorpio's mind. I used to think fast action was power. But Scorpio taught me that silence is sometimes the most strategic move. A Scorpio mentor once told me, don't show all your understanding. People fear what they can't read. That single line shifted how I operate in life. Now, I speak less, but I see more. I wait longer, but I move stronger. And I never ignore the power of listening without reacting. Glowing star, why this trait is so magnetic. People feel safe around Scorpio because their energy says, I've thought about this. I've watched. I've prepared. In chaotic environments, they're the calm. In unpredictable storms, they're the anchor. And in life's strategic moments, they're 10 steps ahead. Their intelligence doesn't need to shout. It simply moves with power, and that's what makes it unforgettable. Crystal ball, next chapter teaser. In chapter 9, we uncover a side of Scorpio that makes them bold, daring, and unstoppable. Crossed swords, fearlessness. Why they go where others hesitate and stand where others collapse. Scorpion, chapter 9, fearlessness. The 9th irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. They don't fear the fire because they've already lived inside it. Have you ever seen someone walk into chaos with calm? Someone who doesn't flinch at the mention of pain, loss, or darkness. That's not recklessness. That's not ego. That's Scorpio fearlessness, an energy that says, I've met my demons, and I don't run from them anymore. This trait makes Scorpio not only magnetic, but unforgettable. Dagger, Scorpio's courage isn't loud, it's rooted. Scorpio's fearlessness doesn't come from pride or bravado. It comes from deep internal mastery. They've been through enough to know. Life will break you. People will leave you. The world won't always be fair. But they also know this. You don't need to be spared from pain to become powerful. You just need to stop fearing it. They are not fearless because nothing scares them. They are fearless because they do it anyway. Fire, facing darkness and not turning away. What most people avoid, Scorpio moves toward. Where others run from truth, they seek it. Where others deny their shadows, Scorpio studies theirs. Where others numb out, they feel everything, then use it. This fearless relationship with darkness is what makes them such powerful forces for healing, change, and raw authenticity. They have walked through fire, emotionally, spiritually, even psychologically, so when the storms come, they don't panic. They already live close to the flame. Open book real story. The Scorpio who refused to stay silent. A Scorpio woman I once worked with was in a toxic work environment where no one dared speak up. People smiled and nodded through injustice. She didn't. Even though she risked her job, she called it out, directly, calmly, publicly. When I asked her later if she was scared, she said, "Of course I was scared, but silence would have made me hate myself more than losing the job." That's Scorpio fearlessness. It's not about risk. It's about alignment. Person in lotus position, Buddhist parallel, transcending fear through truth. In Buddhism, fear is not something to eliminate, it's something to understand. The Buddha taught that liberation comes not by avoiding fear, but by seeing it clearly, sitting with it, breathing through it, and watching it dissolve. This is Scorpio's path. They don't deny fear. They sit in it. They interrogate it. And they transmute it into focus, fire, and fierce presence. They remind us, fear only controls you when you refuse to face it. Speech balloon, personal lesson. What Scorpio taught me about fear. I used to let fear make my decisions. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken. I played small when I should have expanded. Then a Scorpio friend said something that shattered my excuses. You're waiting for fear to disappear. But it won't. Walk with it anyway. Since then, I've done things that scared me. Public speaking, emotional confrontation, deep vulnerability. Not because I stopped being afraid, but because I learned that fear is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Glowing star, why this trait is so magnetic. People are drawn to Scorpios not just because they're deep or mysterious, but because they are anchored, unshaken. Their fearlessness isn't showy. It's sacred. In a world where people panic under pressure, Scorpio stays still. In a world where people break from emotional weight, Scorpio grows stronger in it. They give others permission to be brave, simply by existing as proof that courage doesn't look like fearlessness. It looks like moving forward anyway. Crystal Ball next chapter teaser. In the final chapter, we explore the trait that gives Scorpio their almost psychic edge. Crescent Moon's psychic intuition. How they sense truth before it's spoken and feel energy before it's seen. Scorpion chapter 10, Psychic Intuition. The 10th irresistible trait that makes Scorpios so magnetic. They don't guess. They sense. They don't ask. They already know. Have you ever felt like someone could read your mind? Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't? Someone who looked at you once and knew what you were hiding, knew what you were feeling, knew what was coming before it even happened? That's not coincidence. That's Scorpio's psychic intuition, the final and most mystical trait that makes them unforgettable. Crescent Moon, the Scorpio's sixth sense, beyond logic. Scorpios aren't just emotionally intelligent. They're energetically aware. They can walk into a room and feel the hidden tension, sense dishonesty behind a smile, pick up on what you're afraid to admit, even to yourself. This isn't magic. It's mastery. Their mind doesn't operate through obvious cues. It reads subtext, vibrations, emotional shifts, things most people overlook entirely. The depth behind their eyes. A Scorpio's gaze is different. It lingers. It penetrates. It listens before words are spoken. It can feel uncomfortable because it's honest. They're not looking at your appearance. They're looking into your patterns, your energy, your pain, your truth. They don't do small talk well because deep down, they already know what matters. That's why people say, you can't lie to a Scorpio. Because even if you try, they'll feel the shift in your voice, the break in your tone, the heaviness in your energy. Open book real story. The Scorpio who read me without a word. I once met a Scorpio healer at a silent meditation retreat. We didn't speak for 3 days. On the last day, she walked up to me and said only one thing. You don't need to hold the grief anymore. It's not yours. I froze. She was right. I had been carrying unresolved family sorrow for years, never telling anyone, not even myself. And she saw it. Not through words, through presence, through intuition. Scorpios see through veils, and they don't need permission to notice what's unspoken. Crystal Ball spiritual connection. Intuition as inner stillness. In Buddhist teachings, deep insight doesn't come from thinking. It comes from stilling the mind. The practice of Vipassana teaches us to become aware of subtle sensations, emotions, thoughts, not through control, but through silent observation. Scorpio lives this way naturally. Their intuition is born from silence, from suffering, from inner depth. It's not an external power, it's an internal listening. And the more they trust it, the stronger it becomes. Speech balloon personal reflection. What Scorpio taught me about trusting inner knowing. I used to second-guess my instincts. I thought wisdom came from logic, analysis, and evidence. But a Scorpio friend once told me, the body never lies. The soul always whispers. Most people just don't listen. Since then, I've learned to pause when something feels off, to pay attention to subtle tension, quiet resistance, and unexplainable comfort. Because the truth is, your inner compass already knows. And Scorpios, they listen to it deeply. Glowing star, why this trait is so magnetic. We live in a world obsessed with data, speed, and certainty. But Scorpio offers something ancient, sacred, and missing. Inner knowing. Not forced, not loud, not always explained. And that is power. People are drawn to them not because they're the loudest voice in the room, but because they feel like a mirror you didn't know you needed. A mirror that doesn't just show you your face, but your truth. End arrow final closing reflection. The complete Scorpio mystique. So now, after 10 chapters, we've uncovered what makes Scorpio so magnetic. Their emotional depth, their burning passion, their quiet power, their fierce loyalty, their unshakable confidence, their mystery, their transformational energy, their strategy, their fearlessness, and now, their sacred intuition. But in truth, none of these traits are separate. They weave into one another, creating a soul unlike any other in the Zodiac. To know a Scorpio is to be changed. To be loved by one is to be transformed. And to carry their wisdom within you is to walk the path of fire and stillness, death and rebirth, shadow and light. Folded hands, closing words from the path to Buddhist wisdom. May we all learn from Scorpio to trust what we feel, to rise from what we survive, to protect what we love, and to listen, truly listen, to the truth beneath the noise. The path is always within you, and sometimes Scorpio is the one who reminds you how to follow it. Direct call to action, spoken from the heart. If this video stirred something in you, if you recognized yourself in these words, or you simply admire the unstoppable force of Scorpio energy, then let's keep going deeper together. Glowing star, subscribe to this channel, The Path to Buddhist Wisdom, because here, we don't just talk about astrology. We awaken ancient truths. We merge mysticism with mastery, and we honor every soul's path to greatness. Hit that bell, leave a comment, and remember, the most powerful journey is the one within.